Hey everyone, wanted to talk about five data security and privacy areas that a lot of customers are not very aware of. I've spent the last 3 years in this space, so I figured it was worth talking. So when we talk about Salesforce data security, the things I'm not going to talk about are all the good stuff that you typically do in an org. So I'm sure you have single sign-on, IP allow lists, all the security configured, organization-wide settings, FLS, whatever else. All of that is in place. What else do you do outside of that? So a couple of different areas, and let's try and organize them along with the life cycle of customer. You have some way that you're getting customer data in your Salesforce, or maybe it's a lead that registers, maybe it's a contact you create when someone buys something. Regardless of how they come in, once that personal information is inside your Salesforce, there are privacy requirements that you have to adhere with. Let's start with the first one, opt-in, consent, and communication preference management. These people whose data you now have, you need their consent to process them, specifically if you are in Europe and also in a number of other regions, including Australia, United States, Canada, China, and so on and forth. And what that means is you need to have their consent in a number of these places with an explicit opt-in where they have agreed to let you process their data. That could be a form where they check a checkbox. That may be something you send an email to them or call them and ask them. And it may be just because they signed a contract with you. Once you have this consent, you can also leverage this information to send them marketing communications. And for that, again, you need to have very granular communication preferences by channels such as email, SMS, phone, and by purpose such as marketing, customer service, and so on. Okay, that's the first area, managing consent and communication preferences inside Salesforce for all the personal data that you have in Salesforce. You may have this consent and preference management outside of Salesforce Integrate, or you may have it here. And from here, it needs to integrate with your Marketing Cloud, Pardot, Eloqua, Marketo, MailChimp, or whatever you have. That's the first area from a preference and consent perspective. The second is around now safeguarding this production data that you have. There are regulations that require you to have retention policies. You may have X customer data that you can only keep for 6 years or 10 years or whatever your policy is. And when that date strikes, you need to make sure that this personal information is either deleted or it is masked. You can do either one, and our customers do, a number of those things. So you want to automate this, have a retention policy in place, and accordingly dispose of personal information safely when the time to do so arrives. That's the second area. The third is automation of customer rights. In regulations, including GDPR, California's CCPA, which will be CPRA very soon, Canadian laws in China and Australia and a number of other countries, data subjects or we as people have rights. And two of those very common rights are the right to ask for personal information from companies when, as an organization, you are obligated to provide that, and the right to request companies to remove your data if they don't have a legitimate basis to keep it. And these are also known as data portability and right to be forgotten commonly. So you want to automate RTBF, right to be forgotten, and data portability request and streamline it. So that's the third space to think about. Smaller companies, you may do it manually, but what we've seen lately is even mid-size and large companies get hundreds of these requests every month, and it's only going to ramp up as new regulations keep trickling in. So that's the third area, automation of customer rights. The fourth area is safeguarding customer data in sandboxes. If you have full or partial copy sandboxes, the data in them is real customer data. And this data is real, even if you have shield encryption or anything else like that. And the challenge is, you may have third-party contractors. You may have your internal people who are testing things in sandboxes, and that can accidentally trigger an email to real customers. You also have real employee data. If you're a really large company with 50,000 people, you have 50,000 people data in these full and partial copy sandboxes. So to safeguard data in sandboxes, you want to mask or delete PII from sandboxes. So that's the fourth area. And the fifth space, which typically applies to large and mid-sized companies which have more than one Salesforce org, is the ability to do a multi-org privacy and security automation. So if you get a right to be forgotten request, how can you make sure that this information is wiped out of all the orgs, right? If you have a number of production nodes, let's say if you have 3 production nodes, each of them have 2 to 3 sandboxes. Now you're dealing with 6 to 9 sandboxes of real data. How do you know where these policies are getting enforced? If you want to do data retention, how do you enforce it is applied consistently across your 3, 4 production environments or more? How do you make sure your consent and communication preferences are managed across these? So that's the fifth space around multi-arc. So let me quick recap: consent and communication preference management, data anonymization and retention, privacy right automation for portability and right to be forgotten, sandbox data masking to remove PII, and finally comply enterprise-wide across multiple Salesforce orgs with some sort of multi-org privacy and security hub. So those are the 5 things you may want to consider. We happen to do all the 5. If you're interested, you can reach out to us. Otherwise, I hope this information was helpful. Thank you so much.